Hey everybody, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Terry Hunter. I'm an intuitive astrologer and I'm here today to talk about Venus and Mercury's retrograde this March. Both planets are retrograding so close together in exactly the same signs and houses that I just thought to make two separate videos would not really serve this transit to its fullest. So basically, what I'm going to do today is I'm going to talk about the dynamics of Venus, talk about Venus actually being in her detriment in Aries, in her exaltation in Pisces, and Mercury, and how they're going to interact not only with each other, but with the North Node, Neptune, as it prepares to enter Aries for the first time since 1862, and with Saturn, who has been in Pisces since late 2023. So let's pull up the chart. Now, I have left this chart in Placidus house system, and I think this is important because as you can see, this is not actually relevant, but at the same time it is. At the time that we start this retrograde, we have a Virgo first house at 2 degrees. So it makes this chart very Virgonian in the first house. If for some reason this had been like at 27 degrees, it would very much change the house structure. So when Venus starts her retrograde, she's technically in the 8th house of Aries, which I think is important because the 8th house is a house of transformation. Now, technically, Venus is in detriment in Aries, and yet, from my intuitive perception, she has evolved over the years. She's not just representing females, but representing the feminine, and the feminine empowered, the feminine that is aware of the self, is brave in expressing the self, and is in many ways journeying and discovering the self when it is in Aries. So here we see her starting her retrograde. I'm going to click on her, and she is conjunct the moon. This is a very quick transit with the moon, but I think powerful because it is sort of setting the tone as this is going to be an emotional retrograde focused on the self, focused on Venus's talents, her skills, her voice. Venus rules the voice, and it's not just the speaking or singing voice, but our perceptions, how we see things and how we express what we see, how we express our talents, how we express the feminine, meaning our ability to receive. The feminine is not really a gender, but rather an energy. So the masculine is outward and action oriented, where the feminine is receptive and gestates and creates from that aspect. Now, here we also see a nice aspect from Venus to Jupiter. Venus and Jupiter are natural friends, both ruling wealth and expansion. But at the same time, the beginning of this retrograde, Jupiter has just come out of a retrograde, just barely moved forward, and Jupiter is in detriment. And as Venus is in detriment, they both have to sort of reevaluate and redefine themselves within these territories. And I think this is supported because the moon is bringing in an emotional aspect. The moon is supporting at the 9th degree, the Sagittarian degree, a passion to want to connect with a deeper part of myself, a deeper part of my talents, a deeper part of my self-confidence, and my I really believe that the soul chooses both its talents and gifts as well as its opportunities and obstacles. And while we don't know the subtle details of each of those things, there's a theme. And so the moon here is illuminating, and Jupiter is accentuating as we start this retrograde. What is my belief about myself? What are my everyday thoughts? What's my everyday speech? Does my self-talk support where I want to be, or does it in some ways inhibit that? So I think this is important. Now, I have also want to comment that we see that Mercury at the time of Venus begins the retrograde is up against Neptune. And this can be kind of a polarizing conjunction, because there is this Mercury could get very connected to wanting to escape thoughts that are too harsh or thoughts that are too arduous in some ways. And yet I think it could be very dreamy time to connect with spirit, and utilizing the North Node as sort of this motivation and inspiration to really want to start a conversation. And I want to offer it this way, because you're not really talking to anything outside yourself, but rather you're talking to the aspects of yourself that are represented by Venus and the moon right now, as to what was the deeper intention for me incarnating at this time, and what does my soul want to experience in the way of its own empowerment and co-creation. I think this is super, super powerful. And as I said, these planets are just going to be literally there. It's almost as if it's like I don't know, the galactic a galactic summit of planets coming together, like the united universe, to converse and to prepare for the outer planet's ultimate shift later this year. And later this month, Neptune will dip its toe into Aries. So we're going to feel that. Let me just technically tell you that Venus is going to retrograde from March 1st until April 12th, from 10 degrees of Aries to 24 degrees of Pisces. Mercury will retrograde on March 14th until April 6th, from 9 degrees of Aries to 26 degrees of Pisces. So this conversation is actually much more lively and much more ongoing than normal retrogrades, because we'll see Venus and Mercury coming so close together and then retrograding together, and then Mercury will move past Venus one more time, and then she'll move forward again. So it's really quite a continued dialogue. And because of the idea that Pisces rules transcendence, it rules the vastness of space, so that we understand that we are so much more than our physical appearance, our physical senses. We are eternal beings. And I think this is very much what's going to come up as Venus returns from her detriment, where she feels a little bit like she may not be accepted for all of her power, into a place where she can lull back and almost recalibrate her connection to her inner voice. And wherever this is in your personal chart, I think it's really important to note the house structure, because here at the time of this chart, when this starts off with, and will very much continue into, the how do I create harmony and peace for myself? And am I willing to surrender to the transformation of myself and the power of myself? I think when Aries is the 8th house, there's some sort of synergy with its natural scorpionic energy, because Mars is the co-ruler of Scorpio, and it's comfortable in the 8th house. Now, Mars has nothing to do with this right now, but Aries is ruled by Mars. So let's move the story forward and just sort of click through the month. I'm going to move up about, I don't know, I'm going to move up to the 15th. Nope, I'm not. I'm going to Mercury. I'm going to go to the 3rd real quickly. Sorry, my notes were a little bit. Okay, so we see now Mercury has entered at the 0 degree of Aries. Very much there are thoughts going on about, how do I want to assert myself? That 0 degree is the ultimate co-creation, where the soul has entered the physical and is birthing the fool's journey through the zodiac. So I think this is important. And again, here there's a really strong conjunction to Neptune, and Neptune is either going to, in this instance, this has to do with your own personal consciousness, your own sense of self, how Neptune will play out for you. Neptune could play out in a very dreamy way where you feel super connected to your creativity, to the version of what you want for yourself, and you're aware and you want to start to talk to notice yourself talk. Or it could have the opposite effect where you just want to escape from those monkey mind thoughts that you're not accomplished enough and that you're potentially invisible in your creation and co-creation in this world. So I think that's important to pay attention to. By the 11th, we will see Mercury has come into a conjunction with Venus at 8 degrees. Now, I'm a numbers gal, and while the 8th house rules the scorpionic energy, it's also a number of abundance, and it looks like the infinity symbol. So here, Venus is retrograde, Mercury is not. So this is their first pass. Actually, they'll make 4 passes, maybe 5 now that I think about it, because normally you make 3 passes in a retrograde over the planets, but because their Mercury moves so fast, he moves over Venus twice. Forward, retrograde, and then back over here, forward and retrograde. So here, this conjunction is very much, these thoughts of how do I assert myself? Where do I maybe even hold myself small, or I give my power away? The only aspect that these 2 planets are making is this half square to very liberating, and who has stationed at 23 degrees is Uranus. And Uranus has been here almost 2 months at 23 degrees, first in retrograde. And now I think it's tomorrow, the 12th, that it'll actually get to 24 degrees and start moving towards that Gemini energy and tip its toe there. So this to me is right now, I can't see how I'm going to assert myself, my genius. I can't see how I'm going to move to the next version of me. So that there could be a little tension here during this time. Let's go now to the 15th. And this is where Mercury has now moved into its retrograde. Now, the rest of this period of time, Mercury and Venus are never more than 3 degrees apart. So this is another reason why I wanted to do this video together versus separately, because it would seem odd to not address them together. Essentially, Venus here is not worried about her partnerships. She's not thinking about how she's getting along with other people. She's thinking about herself and how I assert myself. How do I change my everyday life to suit my dreams and my hopes and who I am, the hero that lives within me? And I think this is really an important theme of this retrograde, especially when we start to feel Saturn getting more and more influential in its conversation to Neptune, because essentially, as Saturn and Neptune come into conjunction, there is going to be a strong and almost unavoidable hill to climb, in the sense of Saturn is going to continue to ask each and every one of us, how bad do you want it? How much are you willing to do the spiritual work of believing in yourself, of not being able to see with your eyes or touch with your hands or to have any idea, but to trust your inherent talent and your inherent dream and your inherent plan on this planet? It's really a really strong thing. I'm into weird, I notice strange things. And right now I see a yod at this particular time as Mercury has starting to ramp up its retrograde. It actually started on the 14th at 9 degrees, and we see on the 15th it still is at 9 degrees. But the sun is at 25 degrees, making a quincunx to Spica, the voice of angels. And then we see the quincunx from Spica to Uranus, moving into the future, liberating us, using our genius. I actually put Spica on this chart because the very last day of Venus's retrograde, there is a full moon at 24 degrees of Libra. Yes, 23 degrees of Libra. And Spica is at 23 degrees, 55 minutes of Libra. So this is going to be important. So here we are at the beginning of the retrograde, really only a week into these two planets summiting with all these other energies, and there's a strong focus on the ego, where we edge God out as the sun is in the last degrees of Pisces. And will I listen to the voice of God that lives within me? Within me, will I understand the future, the bigger picture of who I am? Uranus represents space, and when we're looking at it this yod starting in the infinite and vastness of space in represented by Pisces and the Pisces energy. So the ego here is strictly man-made. And this is why we're looking to try to find and hear the voice within in order to liberate ourselves from that which holds us back. Okay, now we also see Pluto making a great aspect here to Venus, supporting Venus and Neptune in seeing that transformation into our divinity, into, from my perception, I do not believe the entire bit of who I am as a being, as an energy, resides in this very small human structure. I believe that on some level, the soul is so vast that it can be fragmented in how it experiences various things. And here, I think that this is an intimate vastness. This is a vastness that offers opportunities to see our expansion. And I think that Pluto is calling forth that transformation, supporting the South Node here in really sort of releasing any earthbound, rigid ideas, allowing for the transformation and the journey of self, rather than having to define the self as one thing throughout this life, and then being able to hear the voice of God within. And I think that's further evidenced by the 29th degree, which is the master degree of the, reducing down to an 11, the master number of thought, the master degree of that house and the structure within it, as well as the Leo degree, where I take on the leadership and demonstrate that by coming from my heart with courage. So I think that's an important thing going on. Now that on 320, we will see Venus be exact sextile to Pluto. So this energy is going to be for about, 15 days or so. And it's going to be, again, a review. Mercury will also join that dynamic as well. Okay, on the 25th, Venus will re-enter her exaltation of Pisces. Oh, well, she hasn't quite done that yet. Might be a little later in the day. I'll just go to the 26th. Again, I'm going to reiterate the 0 degree of Aries is always very powerful, even in retrograde, to be aware of our co-creation, aware of our willingness to be brave, to be pioneering, and to be brave in how we allow our angers and resentments to hold us back from a deeper truth of who we are. So let me pop over to the 26th. Oh my goodness, she's still, I don't know what I did with my dates here. I guess I goofed. All right, now we see she's re-entered on the 27th. I'm sorry about that. She's re-entered Pisces. Now, this is she's with her best friend now. This is a conversation that becomes out of this world in its imagination, which is why it's opposing the South Node right now, because it lacks complete practicality. There is nothing practical right now about this. It's completely fanciful and in many ways probably closer to reality than the Earth perspective would afford it. Because as we focus and we become creative, we really are speaking the language of God, the language of love. And I think we see Saturn now within 5 degrees of Neptune, really anchoring in this dynamic of putting discipline and structure into the reality of your connection to spirit, to that you are an infinite being able to create as you anchor and focus your mind into what you want it to experience. Now, this is not the absence of doubt or the absence of concern or any of the other human emotions, but rather the awareness of it without the obsession on it, because the awareness of it is human and also allows for some neutrality, because we don't want to try to fight a negative emotion and push it back, because that sort of exasperates it. And we don't want to embrace a negative emotion without exploring the power it has to offer us within it. So I think this is important. We also see that Saturn right now at this time is making a nice aspect to Mars. And Mars here, again, is in fall in Cancer, but it's offering this opportunity to really start to look at, am I brave in trusting my emotional body? Can I use my history as a tool to facilitate my intuitiveness, my self-care, my nurturing? And I think the self-care oftentimes when we are intuitive is to see a new face, but recognize an old energy and then address it from the soul's perspective versus the ego's fear of it. Okay. Now, I say the 28th that Mercury will move back into there, not quite. My dates are a little wrong here. I apologize. Here, on the 30th, this is a big day because Mercury has moved into Pisces and Neptune has moved into Aries. This is the first time Neptune has been in Aries since 1862. Here's Mercury at 29 degrees retrograde. Venus is at 28 degrees retrograde, and the nodes are retrograde. The North Node at 27 degrees, and there's Saturn. This is monumental in it's like literally the infusion of this energy that it'll be palatable to us. We won't know why exactly, but it will be heralding a new way of being. As Neptune moves into the sign of the warrior, it really will task us to be the peaceful warrior, to be the warrior that works with awareness, with intention in all ways that I express the self. And the retrograde of Mercury and Venus is to combine the monkey mind and the sort of material aspects of social conversation and cooperation and commingling. We are pack animals. So how can I integrate these two things? How can I transcend and the physical and represent my soul while still being in the physical? And that's through your creativity, through your willingness to look at your life as a creative painting and not just characterize creativity as artists and musicians, although that is what is encased in the Pisces energy. And Saturn is, again, continuing to require discipline and to move forward beyond your results right now, because the results will not come in until you start to assert yourself. And that's going to be that moving from the Piscean energy of connection and soul's voice into, again, now a more physical experience, and moving that soul into the earthly manifestation. Okay. Let's go now to April 7th. Now we see that Venus has gotten down to 25 degrees. She's still retrograde, but Mercury has moved forward. Mercury and Venus and Saturn, they're all still in it's like, imagine a bunch of people in a room and they're all sitting at the same table. Okay. All these planets are sitting at the same table, but now these planets are all sitting together having a conversation while all this is going on in the background. It's bringing up history. It's bringing up, restriction and limitation, and where I have felt less than, or where I have felt, oh, I can't because of this, or I can, there's a draggy energy here, but Mercury is still really invested in the North Node's energy and moving the story forward. I should have said these 4 points are all at the same end of the table. I feel like I'm looking at a big long family table, and like there's people all at this end having a completely different conversation than what the rest of the planets are doing, or at least Neptune. Maybe Neptune got up to go into the kitchen and get some water. Ha ha. Okay. Um, okay. The last time that Venus and Saturn were conjunct was January 19th, give or take a day, with my dates as they are. But it was at 16 degrees. So they are revisiting that conversation. It's almost as if I really think that Saturn represents the elder and the wisdom here, and the evolved version of Saturn, where he understands the human emotions, doesn't necessarily give into them, but understands them and transcends them. And now Venus is, here getting another dose of advice and wisdom that she can take forth as she moves back forward in the next few days, because she's about to get down to 24 degrees, and then she's going to move all over. Well, Mercury will continue on, but she will hit all these planets or these points on her way back through the zodiac. Okay, so let's go now to the 8th. And here she is. She's now at 24 degrees, 57 minutes. She's stationing. We're still in strong summit. We will continue to be with Saturn for quite some time, all the way through till about the 16th of April. So this also could be a time when people could inadvertently feel like whatever they're trying to birth is not being seen or not being recognized. And I do think that if there is restriction in that way, it's to compel you to go at it from a different perception. So if you have been a person who's been marketing and putting, videos out every single day and trying to get the numbers up on your social media platform, and none of it's been working, it's that working too hard in a Saturnian way versus the Venus way of receiving your followers as you are more authentic to the joy of what you're putting out there, what you're creating. I also want to just technically say that Neptune takes 165 years to go around the zodiac. So as Neptune tips its toe in Aries, I think this could create a wee bit of steam, because here's this cold water coming into this fiery sign, and it's just an initial moment. So there could be something, again, an upset of some kind that supports, I call them divine disruption. So it's like an upset that actually brings some kind of liberation. And I think that's further supported by our little cluster here, all having a favorable aspect to Mars and a favorable aspect to liberating Uranus. Both these, Taurus rules history, Cancer rules the family, which nurtured us and shaped us, and Pisces rules our soul's history. So there's a soul's history within this physical that's getting an opportunity to be rewritten, to be the 2.0 version from, the higher realms of spirituality. Okay, now where I want to go is to the 12th. Hold on, let me look at my other notes what time it is. I'm okay. Now let's go to the 12th at 5:22 p.m. because this is, to me, pretty powerful to have this. Oops. Full moon in Libra on Spica. So here is the star Spica. Here's Chiron. Oh, I didn't even notice that Chiron was there before. This is truly, truly an opportunity to have an awareness, have an illumination, have an epiphany about how this planetary activity right here, even if it's been disruptive, is supporting a bigger version of who and what you could be when you're brave enough to stretch yourself into the lane that is most authentic to you. The idea that Chiron, who is at 23 degrees, the liberating degree of Aquarius, the sun is at the liberating, obviously 23 degrees is all Aquarius degree. We're seeing this again, the fullest, brightest phase of the moon, illuminating how the wound becomes the gift. And that is truly the voice of the angels. This is the reasoning. This is the aha moment. This is the, oh God, I guess if I had to start all over again, and then, I'd still walk through this challenge. I'd still walk through this disruption, because this is what happened on the other side of it. Now we have this so wildly beautiful full moon that is also the focus of a finger of God, the yod, that is supported here by Uranus at 25 degrees, Saturn and Venus technically at 25 degrees. I will not put the North Node in there because yods need a very 1 to 2 degree or very tight. And here we're seeing this is so powerful right there at Spica and the moon. So there's something where your emotional body can find balance, find harmony, and find peace through any disruption when you connect to the divinity within yourself that supports the obstacle turning itself into an opportunity. And that, I think, is further supported by the exact trine from the North Node to Mars, being brave to see things from a new perspective. Instead of doing the crab crawl, I'm going to start the 27th degree, is that Gemini degree, being willing to see how I think about things. Mercury's right up against that, okay, at the 28th degree, which is the Cancerian degree, but still a 10. So the how do I nurture myself? That supports this trine. And then, of course, the very powerful Uranus and Saturn sextile that supports the legs of this trine to Spica. I'm sorry, this finger of God to Spica. So this period of time of this retrograde, literally, I'm going to unshare now. This retrograde has so much power to bring in awareness. It's not about releasing anything. It's not about trying to, get over something or forget it happened. It's about the transformation of it and how it empowered you, how it gives you wisdom, how maybe even potentially, themes throughout your life have been the voice of God calling you to a broader and more expansive version of yourself, and yet the human structures around you and the age that you were wouldn't allow you to really birth such a pioneering and maybe even interruptive energy. That's that Aries energy. And yet your transcendence, your transformation, your willingness to step out of the house of self-undoing, which is Pisces, this house of invisibility, of the house of self-troubles, and then moving into this brave house of self-accountability for your perception. And all of this is kind of giving you this review to plan, to prepare, to reconcile, and to recalibrate. So I think this is going to be super powerful. On a mundane level, we could see the planets representing Venus, representing money and beauty and possessions and things. We can see it representing relationships. We can see Mercury representing people in your life, teammates, workmates. And that can all come back as the chess pieces that play out to allow you to have these inspirations and these new thoughts and these new ideas. Or if they're not new, to anchor them in by that full moon focused on the voice of God, focused on the voice of the angels that want to support your expansion and your happiness. Because it is not the meek that truly inherit the earth. It is the connected that inherit the earth, the connected to who they are as loving, energetic beings. So that's it for me. for the Venus and Mercury retrograde. I hope you will like, I hope you will subscribe and share. On Wednesday afternoons at 4 p.m. Pacific time, I've been doing tarot card readings focused on your personal questions. So I hope you'll come in and join me for that little event. And on Sundays at 11 a.m. Pacific time, we go through the transits for the week ahead, and we get the angels' advice through a little reading that day as well. So thank you so much for listening. I appreciate you, sending you lots of love and good energy for this retrograde. See you soon. Bye-bye.